Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Journey into Comics with your hosts, Nate Phillips and Brandon Stone.
I am a god, you dull creature.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another BrandoCast, right here on the Journey into Comics podcast. I'm one half of your co-host, Brando, and basically, what these solocasts are just a little one-on-one time with each of the co-hosts so we can continue to keep putting out episodes every single week. I think it's going to be next week when we actually put out our Breaking Bad retrospective. Of course, as I record this tonight, Better Call Saul premieres, which is, of course, the the spin-off or the offshoot of Breaking Bad, if you will. And this is, the series is going to basically focus around Saul. So, in accordance with this, I haven't watched it yet, but we are going to talk about the first episode of Better Call Saul, and we're going to go through and just gush about everything Breaking Bad, because it's one of my favorite shows, and as well as Nate. But we are Journey into Comics, and of course we are all over your interwebs. We're right here on Podbean, on iTunes, anywhere that you digest your podcasts. Journey into Comics can be found. We are on Facebook at Journey into Comics Podcast. We are in Twitter, JIC Podcast. We're on Instagram, Journey into Comics. We are on YouTube, Journey into Comics. Everywhere you can think of, we are at. So look up all those plugs. We're getting all of our plugs out of the way first, letting you guys know where we are, where you can find us. Of course, you can always send us in questions on our Facebook, on any of those things. You can send us questions to any of those or directly to our emails at journeyintocomicspodcast@gmail.com. So, what's been going on with me? Absolutely a whole lot of nothing. I've been working, and that is pretty much it. I got a couple of things to talk about here. I got some news from video games and comics and stuff to go over. So here are some of our latest Breadlines out there. I figured Nate would talk about this, but I just kind of wanted to throw it out there a little bit. Apparently, the New 52 series from DC is not going to be continuing on after May. Apparently, they're going to kind of alter it, and basically, I'm going to read a little bit here. It's going away, but the story continuity will remain the same. So they're just sort of like altering it a little bit. And basically, what's going to happen is that there's going to be 24 brand new comics and 25 ongoing. So it's not going to be exactly like the 52 thing they had going on. So that's interesting because they're going to be having a kind of a big storyline event called Convergence, and after that's when we're going to see a change in this kind of the DC front of things. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how they go forward. Basically, what they have said is that this, and I'm quoting here, this heralds a new era for the DC universe, which allows us to publish something for everyone, be more expansive and modern with our approach, and tell stories that better reflect the society around us. That is the DC Entertainment co-publisher Dan DiDio. I don't know if I'm saying that right, probably botched it, but basically, yeah, it's going to be sort of not a rebranding or a reboot, but kind of an altering, kind of like you go so far with what you have, and then eventually you've got to kind of shift gears a little bit. This is kind of them shifting gears. I have other headlines as well. I've got the Zelda TV series. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but apparently this was reported by the Wall Street Journal, from all places. But The Legend of Zelda is going to possibly become a TV show with Netflix. I mean, this is kind of an interesting development because Nintendo is so protective of their franchises. They're so protective. They really don't let a whole lot of other people do anything with them. Some things that come to mind. I remember there was a Zelda cartoon. There was, of course, the Mario Brothers movie. There was an agreement with, what was that? The Philips CDI. They had a couple of Zelda games on there, and Mario, Hotel Mario or something like that. But essentially, this could be very interesting. And from the article here, the video streaming service is in the early stages of developing a live-action series based on Zelda, about an ordinary boy named Link, yada, yada, yada. We have, basically, what they're saying is that they're seeking writers to work on the show, and they want it to have a Game of Thrones feel, but for a family audience. Now, those who haven't watched Game of Thrones, Nate, okay, season 1, I'll give you that. But basically, this would be a very big story-centric show, but you pull it back a little bit to something that could possibly air on like CW or something like that. That'd be very interesting though, because I mean, Zelda's not necessarily one of your more mature titles anyway, so I think that would fit it, and having it be like a PG or something kind of show, I think would fit that very well. Moving on, getting through these little news headlines, I wanted to report that one of my favorite games, Xenoblade Chronicles from the Wii. Of course, they have their sequel coming out called Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U. We don't know exactly when that's coming out in the States, but they said that they will feature 4-player online quests. Basically, you'll be able to team up and do your quests. And they've also said they're going to offer an indirect online experience with up to 32 people. I'm assuming that's sort of like a hub where players get to trade items and exchange information. However, they've also said for this is that it's going to feature USB keyboard support, which is very interesting because with what Nintendo's been doing lately with their lack of like actual voice chat is very interesting. So I'm not sure if they're even going to have voice chat for this. It could be kind of one of those old school MMO feels. So that's going to be interesting. I'm liking that they're doing some online integration with it. Obviously, it's not going to probably be as expansive as probably we hope. But I guess that all depends on the success of this title for the Wii U. My last headline that I have, because I didn't want to really flood it with too many, is that the Resident Evil Revelations 2 has been delayed a week. Originally, that game was supposed to come out, when was it? On the 17th, and it has now been pushed back to February 25th. Now, Resident Evil Revelations 2, if I could speak, Resident Evil Revelations 2 is an episodic release, kind of like what you've seen so far with the Walking Dead series or Game of Thrones or Tales from Borderlands. So they're going to be like releasing episodes. Thankfully, they actually have like a tentatively release date for all of these. Like episode 1 comes out on the 25th now, and then March 4th, 11th, and 18th, with the full release landing on March 20th. So people aren't actually waiting that long. I wasn't too sure what to think about that, to be honest with you. But the one thing that redeems it for me is the fact that they're bringing back Barry Burton. Barry mother effing Burton. Give this guy his Jill sandwich. He's finally back, and he's finally kicking ass, it seems. And I'll definitely be checking that out. I'm a huge old school Resident Evil fan. I'm a big Barry fan. Whenever I play the original Resident Evil, I can't even play as Chris anymore because there's no Barry. You end up doing stuff with Rebecca, and that's not nearly as fun as hearing some of those old school Barry Burton quips about Jill sandwiches and how dangerous the house is and the master of unlocking and all that shit. But so yeah, it got delayed a little bit. Not really sure why they got delayed, other than it says additional polishing work and gameplay optimization. Take that for whatever you want it. So that'll be coming out still in February, but 1 week later. So what's been going on in my life here lately since the last podcast? Not much, as I said in the beginning. There isn't really much going on in the world of Brando. I've been working quite a bit, and I've got a really big game hunt coming up on Valentine's Day. I know, right? Instead of spending Valentine's Day with my wife, I'm going to go out very selfishly and buy a bunch of video games. Okay, I mean, that's only part true. I will be meeting with her later on that day. We have a very big thing going on, of course, with our pregnancy. So we've got something going on that day. And then we're also going to be going out to eat and all that stuff. But I'm going to go out for a big game hunt, and I don't even know really what I'm looking for per se. I think I want to stick with some, PSP, PS Vita. Definitely want to pick up some more Super Nintendo and 64 games. I guess it's just going to be all what's going to be at the stores, what's going to be out. I'm going to have a lot of time, too, because we're starting really early. So I guess it's just going to see. I'll definitely let you guys know exactly what comes out of this. But one of the biggest things that just happened for me, gaming-wise, it was a week ago. It was right before we were getting ready to record the podcast last week, and I was watching a pickup video on YouTube of Adam Krolik. And I don't know if you know who this guy is. He was I first discovered him. He was making a lot of Dreamcast videos about basically mods or different methods to get like the VGA video quality out of the Dreamcast, all this sorts of stuff. Eventually, he started releasing other videos, pickup videos, things that he's collecting, and he got something that really turned my eye. He picked up the Resident Evil remastering that came out in the middle of January, I believe. And it came out digitally over here in the States for the PS3, PS4, and both Xbox consoles. He picked it up on physical copy and for the PS3. And that left me shaking my head because obviously this does not exist. This doesn't exist over here. It only came out digitally. And I was going to pick the game up. Digitally, it's only like $20. It wasn't obviously that big of a deal, but it was just, I really have a hesitation with buying digital stuff. Basically, first and foremost is, especially on the PS4, if you buy something digital, you have to have the internet. You have to be connected to the internet for it to do the whole certification crap. Meaning that if I move the console, don't have internet, if my internet goes down, I can't play that game. But it is what it is. I was going to have to bite the bullet if I wanted to play this until I saw this. Now, how this works, now, of course, the game got a Japanese-only release, or a Japanese physical-only release. It's in Japanese, all the text is in Japanese, but it has English voice acting. So you can play the game, but you can't read what you're doing. Now, there was also an Asian release that was released for Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia. And so that release is in English and Japanese. So if you import this from Hong Kong, or I got it from PlayAsia.com, it will play on your PS3. You can choose English, and it's perfectly playable. No problems. My only issue with it is that it tends to take a long time to save. That I remember it back in the day on the PS1 and GameCube. It saved no problem. On this, it's like I could have gone out and got some, did some chores while this thing was saving. That's the only drawback for it. The Resident Evil remastering is basically the remake on GameCube up to HD. I know they did some other work with some environments, kind of they had to redo them a little bit. But so far it plays really well. This release, it also came with a flippable cover. So on one side it says Resident Evil, on the other side it says Biohazard, which is what the series is called over in Japan. And it also came with 2 fully color manuals. When's the last time, number 1, that you saw a game that came with a manual? And number 2, that they bothered to release 2 of them in separate languages? That's nuts. I've been completely blown away with this purchase. If you guys want to do that yourself, again, PlayAsia, it's like $35. PlayAsia.com. So that is one of my newest pickups. But I did go out just today, and I spent $20 of my gaming hunt money, and we went to a couple Goodwills. Now, one of my favorite things to do so far in collecting is I've been going to Goodwills. Now, every first Saturday of the month is what's called, they have half off Saturdays. So everything in the store is half off. That is a great time to go, but it's also very busy. And the earlier that you go, the better. Sometimes they don't get stuff out because as the day goes on, they're constantly putting stuff out. And I've gotten really lucky at Goodwill since I've started collecting video games. I've found a lot of controllers. I found an N64 controller. It's one of the first things that I found in there. And this thing was beat to crap. It had a hole in it where on the inside of the controllers, when you take them apart, it had like those little screw pegs. It had a hole in it from where like one of the screw pegs was like missing. It had like Dorito grime in it. It had this thing was so dirty. It also had the little attachment for the Game Boy cartridge for when you wanted to play like Pokemon Stadium or something like that. That came with it, and altogether it was like $3. And I decided to make that one of my first projects for cleaning a controller because I hadn't done it yet, and I figured if I mess it up, this thing is already kind of a piece of crap anyway. But I cleaned it up, and it's not too bad. The hole is still there, but it's not as bad. I was able to put the peg back in there, and it's on one of the wings. If you ever seen a N64 controller, it has like wings. It has the little stick in the middle, and it's kind of like an M kind of a looking thing. And so it's on the right side. It has a little hole there. But I found another N64 controller a few months later. It was like a dark gray, and it was in perfect condition. Other than it was just dusty. It just needed a quick cleaning. I found a PS1 controller where the sticks were busted. But what was cool about it is that I had another PS1 controller, and this is like the little slim controller, the white version. I had another one that my buddy gave me when he sold me his PS1 Slim console, but that controller didn't want to work at all. So I just took the sticks out of that one, put them in the one that I bought at Goodwill, and now I have a working controller. Accessories is one of the best things to find at Goodwill because Goodwill has stuff broken up. Usually people pick up the system very quickly, but if people aren't looking, they won't, or maybe they put them out separately, they don't pick up the controllers, the cords, anything like that. I've gotten really lucky with finding cords and controllers all across the board. I actually found, speaking of controllers, it was a week ago or 3 weeks ago, it's been within the last month, I found a green PS2 controller. Like, you know how they had like those color variants for those controllers? Yeah, so I found one of those, and then I also found a lot of various power cords. They had a PS1 Slim power cord. I found a lot of AV cords, which one of these days I want to do a YouTube video tour of my room, of my game room, kind of show how I have it set up, because I have two AV switchers. One switcher is just for S video, the other one is just for regular AV cables. And I was able to find for like $1 a piece, which if you go to like Walmart or anywhere else, AV cables are going to cost you about $5 to $7. But at Goodwill for $1, I got like these regular AV cables, which are just male on both ends that go from the switcher to the TV, and I plug my systems into the switcher, and then like you're good to go. There's no power necessary for these switchers. So I've had a couple of those. I got a Game Boy Advance charger. Random as hell. Walked in for $1. I'm like, is that a Game Boy Advance charger? Boom, there it is. And I thought that was just one of the coolest things. Game Boy. I found a Game Boy Color. I found a green Game Boy Color with a pink battery cover. So that doesn't match, but it had Super Mario Land in it. I mean, you're just gonna find the most randomest stuff. I already have a Game Boy Color, and I might actually do a backlit mod on the one that I got from Goodwill there. But of course, it also pays to go and look at the books and magazines, because you'll find old gaming magazines. I found a Final Fantasy VIII strategy guide, almost perfect condition, like near perfect. It's awesome. I mean, it's one of the things I look forward to the most. I used to go every week. I don't do that anymore, basically because of time. I don't really have time to do it, and my work has really picked up. But yeah, Goodwilling is really fun, especially when you can like hit a bunch of stores in one day and you can just make a big circle. You know, me and my wife did that. I think it was like back in May. We started all the way around like our communities, and we took this big long drive and went to at least 4 or 5 stores, and it was pretty cool. I gotta admit, when you go in there, some people go in there and find gold. I haven't found gold yet, but I want to say that I've at least found a couple of silver pieces. You know what I mean? So yeah, Goodwilling is really fun. As far as gaming goes, there's not a lot of news right now. It's kind of a lull kind of thing going on right now with gaming. There's some new releases that have come out, and what I wanted to do is sort of go over some of the releases, and I don't want to go too far in the future because some of those dates can change, and not some of those dates are even ironed out. But I'm basically going to go over the games, some of the bigger games that came out in January, and some of the ones that are coming out in February. And in January, early January, we had the release of Duke Nukem 3D Megaton Edition on PS Vita, which, when I was making out this list, that was the first one I saw, and I didn't even know it came out. I did not even know that this has come out, which is funny because I just bought that at Goodwill. I think I mentioned it on the podcast last week. I bought it at Goodwill for like $2 on the PC, and it's the old PC version. But part of me wants to buy it on the Vita, and I know it's going to be digital and all that stuff, but at least on Vita, you don't have to be connected to the damn internet for a damn online verification. What else? Of course, Resident Evil Remastered. I kind of talked about that already. You can get that in physical form on PS3 or Xbox 360. I don't know if the 360 version physical copy from Hong Kong is compatible with our systems. I know the PS3 one is, because PS3 is region free, and I know mine works. But it's also available digitally across all 4 platforms, and it might be on the PC as well. Saints Row 4 Reelected / Get Out of Hell expansion. That came out in the middle of the month. Basically, that is your Saints Row 4 HD remastering, and they have a little expansion. It's actually a standalone expansion as well, so if you just wanted to get the standalone expansion, I believe you can just download that separately and play that as it is. Dying Light came out for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. I have a friend, a coworker, who's really digging it, and it's not really my cup of tea. I've been watching people play it on Twitch, and number one, I'm not big on first person games anyway. Number two, it just sort of seems like something that it seems like you're always running, and it seems like very just too much going on with the first person perspective. Now, some people may like that, and I don't know if I do. He likened it to DayZ, and I don't think it's like that at all. I think DayZ is more of a there are zombies, but there's also it's the feeling of scavenging, and it's the threat of other players. That's the DayZ sort of experience. But hey, Dying is out if you guys want to check that out. Grim Fandango came out for the PS4 and PS Vita, which is digital only, which really bummed me out because I was really wanting Grim Fandango in a physical copy because I remember playing it on PC in the late 90s. It's one of those kind of old school adventure games. Really weird feeling. Back then, I thought it was made by Tim Burton, but it was actually made by Tim Schafer from Double Fine Studios. Made Brutal Legends, Psychonauts, Grim Fandango, all that stuff. They actually partnered with Sony to bring it to the PlayStation format and PS4 Vita. So I'm gonna have to look into the see how it plays on Vita. I kind of want to play it on Vita. The last game I'm going to talk about for January is a game that came out. It's called Life is Strange. This is another episodic release. Now, this is sort of becoming a trend. A lot of developers are getting into this episodic thing for like storytelling games, and that's kind of what this game is. It's kind of like a storytelling game, kind of like your Walking Deads and Game of Thrones, all that stuff. I don't know too much about it other than you play as a squirrel who can sort of affect time, and it sounds very interesting to me. Again, with this stuff, though, is that I usually wait until the whole thing is out. And so that way I can just play it all as a bunch and not have to wait. Because I wanted to play Game of Thrones, but I decided to wait on that. Now, there are more releases in January. Those are the ones I just wanted to kind of gloss over. Some of the bigger ones that came out for the month. But now I'll go into February, though, because we got a couple big hitters coming out February that aren't yet out. Evolve comes out this month, which it may be out already. I don't know for sure. But it's going to come out for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Of course, that's that game where you can play multiplayer and have like different classes and all that stuff. It kind of looked like a weird version of like Left 4 Dead mixed with like aliens, monsters, all that kind of stuff. And I think you can actually play as the monsters as well. That's pretty much all I know about that one. I'm not really big into that genre, but Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate comes out for the 3DS. Of course, this is more up my alley, but I haven't played them other than the first one on PS2. That's been a long time ago. Then I actually recently just got a copy last year from my coworker. He actually donated it to me. But Monster Hunter 4 comes out for the 3DS. I don't know if this is coming out for the Wii U. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like this is it. For now, it's just going to be straight for the 3DS. Also for the 3DS is the Legend of Zelda's Majora's Mask HD, which everyone's losing their minds over, which is kind of funny because, back in the day, I didn't feel like Majora's Mask got this much love. It's getting a lot more love now than I feel that it got back then. And for me, it's neither here or there. It's like, I'll eventually get it, but Majora's Mask was not one of my favorite releases for the Zelda franchises. And of course, the last two games are a big lead up to the release of the new 3DS, which is a horrible name, but the new 3DS launches on the 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. So there you go. You can get your sweetheart something nerdy there for that. And also, the last two games I told you about, the Monster Hunter and Legend of Zelda, they have exclusive systems for the new 3DS. They have a Monster Hunter edition that comes with the game pre-installed, and then they have the Zelda edition, which does not, but it doesn't cost any more than the normal system. Of course, I mentioned earlier, Resident Evil Revelations 2 Episode 1 does come out in February. It's towards the end of the month now. But that also means that episode 2 won't come out at the end of February as originally planned. So just episode 1 comes out. And then again, the whole thing is like all the episodes combined. They all come out in like March 20th, I think. Kirby and the Rainbow Curse for the Wii U. This is kind of like a puzzle game where you got to like draw his path, but it's a platformer puzzler where you only have so much ink to get him places, and you can get him little power ups and all that stuff. It seems cool, but it's not a Kirby game. You know what I mean? It's almost like, of course they released Triple Deluxe last year, or was it last? Yeah, I think it was. That it was. Of course they released Triple Deluxe, and that's a Kirby game, and this one is. They can do so much with a consoleized Kirby game, and it's not quite that. It might be something to check out, but, with gaming nowadays where you only have so much money to spend on your games, each game needs to be a invested choice or a thoughtful choice. You need to think about what you're buying. So I don't think, even for a Kirby fan like me, that this is actually going to be one that I pick up. Of course, we also have The Order 1886, the big PS4 exclusive, one of the first of the year, I believe. So, a lot of is banking on this for this game to be a success for Sony, because so far, in this gamer's humble opinion, Sony hasn't had that game that makes you go, "This is why I own a PS4." Now, granted, neither have the other two. I mean. Maybe Wii U, you can argue that. Okay, Mario Kart 8, Super Smash. But I honestly think, those are titles that have been around and they haven't really been innovated that much. But when you get towards this year, that game could definitely be the new open world Zelda game where this is why we own a Wii U right here. This is why you should go out and buy this system, because this game is freaking awesome. The Order is very story driven. There's going to be no multiplayer, which I'm definitely fascinated in that fact. I'm not a big multiplayer guy. I like my story, but the story has to be really good for this to become that big, exclusive game. And has a lot of people are already kind of turning their nose against this game before it's even out, based on how long it is. I've heard it's at least 10 hours long, which, from a story-driven game, and that's all you're doing, 10 hours, I think, that's right in your sweet spot. You don't want to go too long if all you're doing is doing action sequences between your story sequences. So you don't want to have the game be too long. I want to say like The Last of Us was somewhere between 10, 12, 15 hours. So as long as the Order falls into that little window, I think it'll be just fine. Now, the last game I'm going to talk about for February is a game that apparently a lot more people are hyped about than I thought, and that's Dragon Ball Z Xenoverse. I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan. I haven't played a Dragon Ball Z fighting game since the PS2, since Budokai Tenkaichi 3, which I am so surprised that I did botch that. I'm so surprised I was actually able to say that. But Xenoverse, it looks like you're going to have quite a few playable characters, and the story mode's interesting as they actually go through and they change history, and then you have to go through and fix it. So you're going to be met with different sequences, different storylines. So that's going to be really interesting, and there's going to be like a create a player, like you create your own hero, and then that person fixes stuff. It's going to be really interesting to see how they play through that, because as I said, I'm a fan of the series, but I haven't really played it in so long. I missed the entire generation gap for the PS3 and 360. I didn't really play any of those. I played a demo for one of them, but that's about it. So those are really all the games that are coming out in the next few months that really have my eye, or in my opinion, big enough. And of course, there's going to be a lot of your indie games that come out, even some other games that are going to come out that I really didn't mention. And I don't really want to go too further into March or April or anything like that. As far as games I'm looking forward to, I don't have a new 3DS, and I probably won't have one by the time this comes out. But in sometime in April, the port of Xenoblade Chronicles comes to 3DS, which I definitely want to pick that up. And in early June, I think it's like June 2nd, Batman Arkham Knight comes out, which I have it pre-ordered with the limited edition statue. I didn't get the Batmobile. They were all sold out. I want to say they sold out very quick of that. which is, of course, just the way for pre-orders now. Apparently, us gamers really aren't allowed to get them anymore unless we work at GameStop or buy them from a, scalper. So that's the way that thing kind of goes. So there's something that I wanted to try for my episode here. And for those of you who don't know, I make YouTube videos on the Journey into Comics YouTube channel where I post YouTube videos for my gaming pickups. Yeah, and everything I picked up for the month before, I kind of go over, talk about it, and just kind of discuss why I bought it, or some of them might go into more detail than others. But I kind of wanted to see what it would be like if I could put the audio into a podcast. Probably, you're not going to get the full experience. But for those of you who never heard it or did that, if you guys didn't want to go check that out, I just thought about kind of putting that here and just seeing what it sounds like. So I'm going to try that right now. Hopefully it works. So for the rest of the podcast, it's going to be the audio from my gaming pickup for January. And so we're going to see how this pans out. So I want to thank you guys for listening. Tune in next week for the Breaking Bad special. And, for me and Nate, we'll see you then. What's up, guys? Brando here again, going through my January pickups. I got about 30 games here to go through, so we're going to try and get through it as quick as we can to keep the number on this video down so we don't kind of get too long-winded. So let's just get right down to it. Okay, so we're going to start off first with my lone PC pickup. I don't really collect PC games or anything like that, but I saw this at my local Goodwill, and I like to go to Goodwills, every now and again, get some pretty cool stuff in there. And I found Duke Nukem 3D for like $2, and I remember playing this way back when it came out on like a buddy's computer or something. And I'm not really big into first-person shooters, but you gotta love Duke, and I definitely do. And for $2, who can say no to the Duke, right? And I got a nice stack of PS1 games, bringing up my total PS1 games now to 99, I do believe. Some of these, I used to own one of these here, and some of the other ones I have played, but I never did play this one, Star Wars Demolition. It's from the makers of, Vigilante 8, those kind of like those games that were kind of like Twisted Metal. And, but I definitely remember this and seeing ads, like in GamePro or whatever, but never ended up picking it up. I played it, and it's definitely different. But it's like one of those games that I kind of want to get to play with other people to try and figure it out together and have a good time with it. This one I did actually used to own. I don't know what happened to it, but it's Soviet Strike. And I remember loving this game when I was a kid. Going back to it, it doesn't really hold up as well, especially all those kind of like real-time videos. They did a lot of that in the early days of the PlayStation, where they would actually film like with real actors. And I remember seeing one of those actors in like some Nickelodeon show, so they weren't actually like real big time actors or anything like that. So obviously it wasn't that great. But I did get the Greatest Hits version. I really have stopped caring whether I get Greatest Hits or Black Label. I used to have it with Black Label, but good game. I believe they made a sequel, Nuclear Strike or something like that. I think that was on the 64 as well. But yeah, not bad. And when all these games, all the following PS1 games, I got for really cheap. Definitely had to pick this one up, especially for like a couple bucks. GTA 2. And these old style GTAs, of course, had like that top-down God view, you know what I mean? So they're definitely kind of difficult to play, but I was very surprised kind of going into it when I was trying it out that it wasn't really that difficult as I remember it being. So I was able, the only thing I didn't like is I wasn't really able to tell exactly where I was going. They had like this little like things, little like arrows that tell you, if you go over here, maybe you'll get to this job. If you go in this direction, you'll get to that one. But that's the one like downside to being like kind of a top down, is that you don't really know what's in front of you. But definitely cool to pick this up. I'm gonna have to pick up the other two, I believe that there are. There's one, and then I think there's one in London. This is a game that I remember seeing a lot of. Especially like in magazines and ads and everything when I was a kid, but I never played it. It's called One, and I definitely remember seeing videos of this when I first started collecting, and I just remember the name, and it kind of had that like that barcode. Like nowadays, that kind of makes me think of like Hitman. Oh yeah, they have you like running down like this corridor and everything's like destroying all around you, and you're getting shot at and whatnot. I definitely remember seeing this like at a Hollywood Video or something when I went to go rent early PS1 games. This one, I actually have the first 3, so I saw it, and it wasn't actually going to be on my radar because I remember playing it and wasn't too impressed with it when I was a kid because I absolutely loved the third one. It's Need for Speed High Stakes, but I saw it for like a couple bucks, picked it up. The one thing that I have to say about this is that when I think of old school Need for Speed games, I want to jump in and I want to go and I want to play. This one, it makes it a little bit more difficult to do that. It's like you have to like start and like earning your cars, which I know that's like the norm for now, but come on, man, this is arcade, man. I just want to get in and go. So I don't know if there's another way, if there's cheat codes to get around that, or what. I don't know, but I kind of wish that it was a little bit more accessible for just putting in and just kind of going. These next 2 games are definitely accessible though. Cool Borders 2 and 4, which are totally random pickups here. These were like $1 a piece. I definitely remember these games. These games were awesome. I'm gonna have to pick up 1 and 3 because having 2 and 4 is just kind of weird on the shelf. I got another Star Wars game. Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles. Now, I heard a little bit about this and heard that this was actually a pretty decent game. Playing it, maybe it was just the fact that this my first impressions. I wasn't too impressed with it. It was sort of generic. Maybe it's better with multiplayer. I'll have to try that out when when Rob comes over or something. Moving on to some more PlayStation stuff. I got kind of this decent stack of Vita games here from a coworker, and I got Uncharted Golden Abyss. Now, I got this when it was free on the Vita. It might still be free. I don't know if they're still doing that instant game collection thing or not. But when I got my Vita, I got Plus and got this right away because I love the Uncharted games, and this is amazing on the Vita. A couple more here. I got a game called Freedom Wars, which I do remember trying this out. I do remember it was like very heavily Japanese. It's like all the voices were in Japanese, and I didn't see anywhere where you can change it. It's very heavily stylized, and I think I probably spent like 15 minutes in the creative character, so I really didn't get too far into it as far as the actual gameplay goes. You see, it does seem like a pretty interesting game to kind of dive into, and I'm really looking forward to getting into that. I got the Sly Cooper collection, all 3 games. The interesting point is, and I think Final Fantasy HD collection was like this as well, only 2 of the games are actually on the little card here, and the third one is a download code, which is very interesting. I'm not sure how much I like that. The thing is that when I bought this from the coworker, the third game has not been redeemed, so I'm getting it basically brand new code there. But I do get all 3 games for it. And I know that Final Fantasy X, 10 is a physical, and it's on the card, and 10-2 is also a download. These next 2, she bought them used, so they were like in your little kind of GameStop generic black cases. But I did print labels for them. They're not the best looking, but when you just kind of look at them on the shelf like that or anything like that, they look decent enough, and you can tell what games they are. I would like to get actual like blue cases, which you can order on eBay or whatever for them. But these are Killzone Mercenary and Soul Sacrifice. Both really great games for the Vita. For Killzone, I was very surprised just to see how well it worked and how well it played for a first-person shooter. And for Soul Sacrifice, this one I believe was also free, but I never did get a chance to play it. So I was really happy to see that when she was offering kind of a bundle, that Soul Sacrifice was indeed in there. Moving on with other PlayStation kind of hits here, I'll start with this one. This one I do remember renting and playing. It's a kind of a polarizing series. Some people like some entries, some people don't. And they did revamp it just a few years ago, but that's the original Devil May Cry. And again, I think I got this when I got the PS1 stuff, and it was pretty much like $2 or something like that. Couldn't say no to that. You know, I'm trying to build a collection, and the Devil May Cry games are games you just have to have for the PS2. And this one is also another one I feel like you must own, because I actually own the sequel, or the spiritual sequel, if you will, but it's the Mark of Cree. And this game, just like the sequel, I never did play it before I ended up buying it, but I heard a lot about it. And I definitely liked the intriguing gameplay elements in this. I really liked how they mapped the buttons for the combat system, and I'm really looking forward to diving into that. And I got Onimusha 2, which is cool because it kind of completes my trilogy. I want to say there might be one more, but I'm not for certain. I really do dig this series a lot, and I'm really looking forward to like just sitting down and playing all 3 of them all the way through. I've gotten some decent time into the first one, but I've been bouncing back and forth between so many games that I just haven't had a time to really beat it or anything like that. This next one I got this off the recommendation of Metal Jesus Rocks right here on YouTube, and that is Okage Shadow King, which is kind of funny because I'm saying it like that because that's the way he said it, or that's the way I've heard other people say it. But the guy at the game store, he's like Okage. I'm not sure if you'd ever heard of it, but this is very interesting. It's like an RPG, and it is exclusive to the PS2. It's one of those like bluebacks, like those little compact discs that they were still using for some of these games. And this game had me laughing. It really did. I really liked how it was presented in a very serious manner, but the threat really wasn't that serious. And your main character ends up binding his shadow with Stan, this little Shadow King guy. And his sister is cursed with a Pig Latin curse that another ghost put on her, and she could speak only in Pig Latin. And that was just cracking me up. And the dad was freaking out, and the grandfather was trying to like, this isn't as bad as it's supposed to be. He's not freaking out, but it was really cool, and something that when I was testing it out, I did not want to put it down. The last time I had PlayStation pickups, nothing really special, but I did not own one. I lost mine. That's an original DualShock, and now I've been wanting to get one of these because I kind of want to do like a PlayStation collection video where I showcase my entire PlayStation collection and my systems, and I've showed you some of these games, but I really would just want to go through like my entire collection, tell you what some of my favorites are, and I feel like this is a must-have if you have a PS1. You gotta have a DualShock. I would like to get an analog. They had like a dual analog right before they released those. Let's go with the NES games I got. And I'm just gonna go through these real quick. Metroid. I mean, come on. The original Metroid. You gotta have that in your NES collection. It's pretty good, but I would have to say that like going back to it now, especially when you have like Metroid, Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion, this one definitely suffers a little bit. But it's still pretty good to go back to. And of course, I'm a huge RPG nut. I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, and I had to get the original Final Fantasy. Although I already have it on PS1, I had to get the original cart just for collector's sake. Pretty neat. Let's go with I got this from a buddy, Matt. He's been on the podcast before. And this is the Grand Theft Auto trilogy on the Xbox. I actually have it on PS2, but he had this for Xbox and made a little bit of a trade for it. So definitely I have these, and it has all of the manuals and maps and everything still in there, ready to go. It even still has the little Xbox sticker certificate thing down there. So I'm going to move on to the 360 here, and I ended up getting Duke Nukem 3D, but I also got Duke Nukem Forever. These games were in the pretty much cheap as you could get bin at GameStop, and I was walking by it, and I spent $12 for like all of these. Duke Nukem Forever. I remember when this came out. This game was in development hell for like a long time, and when this came out, people were kind of disappointed. They were expecting like a big blow away first-person shooter. It's a Duke game. If you like Duke Nukem, you'll like this. And I guess people were just expecting a little too much from it, but I played it and I liked it. Really good game. This one was a game that I've been wanting to check out for a while from Capcom, Lost Planet. It's this game where you're like in this mech and you're going around, and it's kind of like a third-person shooter, but it doesn't really quite have all the mechanics yet. It's still kind of stiff. It feels very, I don't want to say action RPG-ish. It kind of is a little bit. I don't know. It's not quite exactly what you're thinking when you're thinking of a fluid third-person shooter. It's mech game at least, but it's very interesting, and I kind of want to see where it goes. There are some other ones out there, so I'll have to pick those up. This one is definitely a must-have for the 360. Fable 2. I got the first Fable on the original Xbox. I don't have Fable 3, not yet, but come on. It's one of those games where if you're collecting and then you look at it and they'll say, well, where's Fable? Where's Fable 2? Well, I don't have it yet. Well, why not? And for like a couple bucks, it's like, why not, right? I need to have it. This next one is from the makers of Hitman. Our good friends here at IO Interactive. Kane Lynch, Deadman. Interesting game here. They kind of it kind of feels similar to Hitman, a little bit different though, and it has kind of an interesting start to it. Pretty cool narrative. Looking forward to diving into this and getting through this. There was a second one which I heard was really short. Maybe I'll have to get that just to complete these. Now for these last few, for the Wii, I picked up Manhunt 2, which I love the first Manhunt, and I remember borrowing this from my good co-host here at Journey into Comics podcast, Nate. He let me borrow this, and he let me borrow the little, it had a special Wiimote strap that kind of looked like a hospital wristband that you get when you go there. And he let me borrow that as well. And I'll be honest with you, at the time I just could not get into it. I kind of felt like it was a little too edited. They edited a lot, like some of the harsher kills and everything. But now, many years later, kind of coming back to it, I had to pick it up. And when I've seen it for the PS2, but I really wanted to get it for the Wii, simply because it was kind of controversial with how you had to like do all these motions with the with the nunchuck and the Wiimote. People thought that it was like recreating the actions or whatever. So it's not really as bad as people think, but had to get it for the Wii. Moving on to the 64, I got pretty much the essential games you need to get for the 64, minus a few. Star Fox 64. I mean, come on, this is like a one and done deal. I saw this for pretty cheap, had to pick it up. Now this next one, though, I found it in a store, and surprisingly, I did not own it at all for the 64, and that's Super Mario 64, complete in box, because it's got the manual, it's got everything in here. The box is in pretty damn good condition. There's a few other ones there. They only had Majora's Mask, they had Paper Mario, and Kirby, Crystal Shards. So, but this one was like, it wasn't the cheapest one of them all, but it was one of those where I was looking at them and I thought about getting one of them, and this one jumped out at me from a collecting standpoint. This one was probably in the best condition box-wise, and once I asked to see it, and he opened it up here, and then he kind of looked inside, and the cartridge is, I don't know how good you guys can see it, but it's still wrapped in plastic. And if you open up from the other side, you can actually get the cartridge out, and the plastic isn't taped or anything like that, so it definitely could have been opened and played, but it's very well taken care of. Very damn good condition, but it is the player's choice, million seller, so it is the re-release, it's not the original box. But just to have it as a showpiece, and to have this game, if at all, for the 64, which you need, it's very good to have this. Very good to have it in box. Very happy to have that. And I'm not going to turn into some collector that needs to have a box for every single game they own. Like, I don't really need it for Star Fox. If I come across it cheap, very cheap, I'm not going to overpay for anything like that. But if I find it and it's a good enough condition and I don't already own it, I'll definitely probably pick it up. Well guys, that's my pickup video for January. I've got a big game hunt coming up, and that's probably going to be my final hurrah. I know I've been saying that here, whereas I've been saying each video might be my last big one, but I think this one is definitely going to be, this next one for February, it's definitely going to be the last big one. Maybe we'll get some small stuff and then I'll let it accumulate and then do a video. I definitely have some other videos in mind, like I said, the PlayStation kind of overview collection thing. I've got 99 games now, so once I get over 100, maybe I'll do that and kind of show you a bunch of games with a bunch of my favorites and going forward with that. So until then, I guess I'll see you later. Check us out for Journey to Comics podcast. Me and Nate putting out a new episode every week, and we're also on Facebook. We're on Twitter now at JIC Podcast. We are on Instagram posting pictures of our collections, comics, video games, you name it, man. So check us out on all those mediums. If you guys like the video, there's more to come. There's more on the channel. Hopefully Nate can start making some videos soon. I hope he does, because I'm really anxious to see exactly his video style and some of his collection. So guys, till then, I'm Brando, and I'll see you later.